think it's about sanctioning. I mean, we having an effective sanctioning regime to be able to sanction corporations and individuals that flout these rules, because these are very simple rules that do not price your product, your domestic product, in foreign currency. And therefore, if you flout it, I mean, everyone sees it. And when it's been flouted,
action should be done.
Action should be done.
Prof, you have to hold on there. I'll come back to you. And this is the business edition of PMS Press. We'll be getting on the line to speak to the Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Carlos Ahenkra, to join us in this discussion to find out what this government doing, apart from the moral switching. Have you gotten to the stage where the laws has to be just enforced to ensure that you and I will comply with the laws? This is the business edition of PMS Press as we look at the Cedi depreciation. Is it about exports or changing our consumption pattern? Medium to long-term solutions in addressing the problem. You're welcome from the break. This is a business edition of PMS Press. And let's get straight onto the line and find out what government is doing to ensure that we are moving away from the talking and walking the talk, or just moral suasion and enforce the law. And one minister that is also working closely in this area to ensure that we make some progress with respect to stabilizing the city in the long term is Carlos Ahenkra, as Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry. Carlos, thank you so much for your time and joining us on the business edition of PMS Press.
Well, thank you too for calling me from far away India. I think that it's only important that we make ourselves available for these explanations for God and country, and also for people to understand where government is coming from in case they don't know how we're trying to solve the problem. So thank you.
Mr. Ahenkra, for Adjoa on the street of Accra, for everything that happens in the economy, they look up to people like you. One would want to find out, what is Mr. Ahenkra, together with the sector minister, doing to ensure that we don't get into this problem again?
Well, let me thank you and also thank my people, Ghanaians, for supporting and believing in MPP. What has happened in the past with this fall in the Cedi, I would say that it's not something that is very normal. We haven't seen anything like that in our economy as far as even if it happened over a very long period of time. So you should tell us that something really should have kickstart this free fall. And I can conveniently say that there's a very good reason why this happened. But of course, obviously, I will leave the explanation for my vice president on the 3rd of April. If anybody is interested, I would challenge you to go to the doctors and surgeons hall to listen to the vice president. He would explain and tell us how this free fall happened.
Yeah.
It was something beyond our control. It was something that was orchestrated by previous events, which, if he comes out to explain, we would all understand why it's happening like that. But as you and I are witnessing today as we speak, the city is gaining grounds, and of course that was to be expected, especially when those regions behind the free fall actually started stabilizing or easing of pressure on why it should happen like that. Like I said, I won't take the wings of the sail of my vice president He is the person in charge. He is the one who has authority over this. He's going to do justice in explaining the reasons why the Cedi suffered this hiccup. And I must confess that very soon it's even going to look better than you're seeing now. Today, as we speak, everybody in Ghana would attest to the fact that the Cedi is really gaining speed against the dollar. Come next month, when we are done with this Eurobond, within next month, we are going to see even a better Cedi compared to what is happening now. Also expecting the inflows from cocoa board and a few from also the oil sector. I'm sure that this is going to pan out very well. But that notwithstanding, as a country, it's always appropriate that we put ourselves in readiness for situations such as this one, especially when the currency is not our currency and we peg our own against the strength of this one. It's important that we find ways and means to stop, or if not stop, regularize, slow down the free fall. And we, from us in the Ministry of Faith, we have mentioned that the major solution to this problem is to increase or improve export. And what we are doing in this department is to get the Ghana Export Promotion Authority to lead the discussion and review of the National Export Strategy, which they have done. Now we level in implementation, where we are going to roll out very soon for people to see what we plan doing. It is the intention of my ministry, and of course by extension the government, to double exports by the end of 2019. By so saying, what we are doing as a strategy is to identify the top 20 exports in the country, see what the challenges are, or what we can do to improve the lot of these companies, and push them, as far as we can, for them to be able to improve on the production that they're doing. Yes, it is a basic economic fact. I mean, everybody that has done O-level economics knows that balance of payment, of course, when it's in surplus, means that your sleep or your money, your currency becomes stronger. So the more export that we're able to do, the more we put our city in a better shape. Right now, what people don't even know is that with the oncoming Brexit, we are faced with challenges of some of our exports going to hit the snag. I say this because majority, about 50% or 40% of our total exports to the EU goes to the UK. And this, in particular, will be the banana. And if Brexit should happen, whether hard or soft Brexit, our banana accompanying measures will be affected. We have been in serious talks with Britain up until now, trying to find common grounds for this to happen. Recently, I think the Vice President himself was even in London with my minister. We have been having talks and conference calls and so on and so forth. And we are developing mechanisms where our banana exporters will not suffer any hiccups when Brexit should happen. This are some of the things we are doing to ensure that our exports don't suffer, and by extension, our dollar to CU, which will always maintain at a rate that we won't see too much of a setback. Behind or beyond that is the EPA that we have signed. I don't know whether you heard
the Economic Partnership Agreement,
yeah. Which is an agreement that we have signed with the goal of EU. Where Ghanaian exports are going to go into the EU quota-free, duty-free. With this agreement in place, we are going to ensure that we improve or we maximize the exports that we get into the EU, just to push up our export earnings from the EU. Recently, I was in talks with the ambassador for the EU, and he mentioned to me that people who send timber, for example, to the EU, who are paying 11% duty on their exports when it gets into the EU, are going to go in there free. So it really means that when they're able to double their exports, I mean, they don't suffer any. People don't bring them that much in because, of course, you have to pay a duty where you send, any quantity in there. But when there's no duty expected, then certainly it's going to push people to even produce more and send more into the EU and so on and so forth. Then, of course, there's AGOA. Unfortunately, what we have realized is that AGOA, which is the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which the U.S. has granted all African countries to export gluten-free, duty-free into their economy. It's not being utilized properly, let me say, because there are about 9,000 products under AGOA which we can, nicely send goods into the U.S. and, of course, capitalize and get more export earnings. But unfortunately, we have just embarked on, just sending apparels and garments and textiles. And even that, when we left government in 2008, I think the PSI was not continued. So the garment and textile sector also died away. All earnings, export earnings coming from that sector is collapsed. So now we're not getting anything apart from one particular company, which today is doing a lot of export into the the US when it comes to garments and textiles, whose turnover probably by the end of 2020 should hit around 37 million and so on and so forth. So we are going to resuscitate the textiles and garment department and capitalize on AGOA and see how we can also make some earnings from that side. So beyond that, we would take advantage of the 9,000 products that are captured in AGOA and see how we can also make some earnings on other products. The only problem here is most of the items that could go into the U.S. will not meet the standard that is set by the U.S., especially when it comes to food items. But that notwithstanding, we're finding ways to get the U.S. standards authorities to come in and train our exporters as to how they can qualify into the standardization methods of the U.S. So,
Honorable,
this is what we are putting together.
Yeah, great initiatives, but some have said that the laws and everything are there. It's about the implementation. Come next year, can I come to your office and do the checklist about these things being done to boost our exports?
Again,
I'm saying that you have very brilliant programs that you're working on, and looking at all these things, it's about implementation. Can I come to your office next year and do the checklist or go through the checklist to find out whether all these things have been indeed implemented?
No, I don't see the reason why not. You see, the problem is these fine ideas that we put on paper, of course, would have to be supported with funding. And, one basic problem of our exporters is how to get low-interest facilities or low-interest credit, which I would say up and until now has eluded them. But what we are doing as a ministry is to see how we can get them to form change with U.S. companies who will bring in their own capital and get these products manufactured and sent to the U.S. In fact, that is even happening right now with one of the companies. And we are seeing how we can extrapolate to get it onto the other companies. And that notwithstanding, of course, when it comes to the banana people, I have paid a visit to the Golden Exotics farms at the Akuse area. And what I saw there, honestly speaking, I tell you, I didn't even believe it. It's a massive development, which, of course, is anything that every government should encourage for producers to enter into. So what we are doing with them is to see how we can have outgrowers, where they will give us a manual of their standards. So outgrowers will produce this manual, and they will assess the standardization, pick it up and market, or probably even sell for them to get their proceeds. If that should happen, it means that we are thinking of this doubling of exports as I've mentioned to you. It is not just on paper. It is something that has been planned. Yes, of course, I challenge you to come back this year.
Okay,
and see where we are.
I am going to come back. Honorable, final one before I let you go. There's talk about, in the medium term, let's take a look at possible tariffs on items that we have already here in this market, so that we try and control the demand for some of these goods. Is this something that can be done within the WTO rules?
Honestly, you have to come back on that.
I'm saying that there is talk about putting some tariffs on items that we can produce locally to check the importation of them. Within the WTO rules, is it possible for government to do that?
No, well, WTO does not bar anybody from putting duties on items. What would bar us from putting duties on items would be the bilateral agreements or the multilateral agreements that we have with other countries. For example, about the EPA. Once we signed the EPA, or once we came to meet the EPA already signed in 2015 by the previous government. So it means we don't even have a choice. We have to go with it. The implementation will start from the year 2020, which is next year, until 2029. After 2029, all exports coming in or going out of Ghana into the EU is quota-free. All imports coming in from EU into Ghana, about 6,000 or so line items, will also come in duty-free, quota-free. That notwithstanding, we also have that of the UK, the UK-Ghana trade agreement, which also after Brexit would have to sign. Once that is signed, the same measures would follow. Then comes the bigger one, which is the African CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, which is going to collapse all barriers within Africa for it to be one marketplace. Once that is also done, it means that anybody, everybody, anywhere in Africa can send goods to Ghana without any duties or quota, and we can also send out without any duties or quota. So, in effect, I don't think that putting duties for us is too much of a deterrent. What we need to do rather is to encourage our manufacturers for them to be able to improve on their lot and get more goods outside. Because when the CFTA comes into place, and for example, if you manufacture cement and you are not able to send cement to Nigeria, and Dangote is able to bring that cement from Nigeria to Ghana, you cannot challenge them. Nobody can stop them because we have already signed that agreement. And I don't know whether you are aware. We might even, have or host this CFTA secretariat here in Accra.